It is more powerful for a 5-year-old to say thank you, God, for the sun.
Yeah.
Than a 40-year-old saying thanks, God, for the sun. Good night.
Well, but I still thank him for the sun.
Yeah,
I thanked
do
him
too,
for it today.
But there's a lot more things that I'm thankful for and that I see these days.
Please just hold your breath. Every door looks better when you keep it closed. Keep your head down and don't watch your step. No point in even trying now, just let it go. Maybe they will write the same for me. Maybe this was really just a dream. Don't wanna take that risk and try to see. A 9-to-5 will bring security, I'm sure, but I can guarantee you that's no way to live. Way to live. Promise that's no way to live. Way to live.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod. I'm Denise Acosta.
And I'm Brooke Ackerman.
And we are so glad you're back. So today, I thought it'd be fun to talk about our prayers. Because I feel like lately mine have shifted quite a bit. I feel like what before I would have started off as one very simple ask, like, hey, God, can you do this? Has now turned into 7 different other things about that situation that I'm now praying for. And I was trying to decide what's going on there. Is this growth because I see more things, or is this we're afraid? And so we're no longer asking for the one miracle kind of a thing. And so I thought that would be fun to talk about today.
I love it.
Yeah?
Great.
Have you experienced anything like that?
No, never.
Never. Okay. I'll just talk to myself.
Okay, great. Actually, I'll scoot out of the camera and it can just all be you. No, my prayers have definitely changed. And like you said, I don't know if I ever really thought of it as them getting, I don't want to say getting worse, because that's not what you're saying. I think the change has been in the more positive change than anything that's not positive. Because I don't want to go so far as to say negative, because that's not necessarily what's going on or what you're saying either, I don't think.
No.
But I like to think that they've changed for the better. Whether God agrees with me or not, I don't know.
There was definitely a space there where I wasn't sure if it was a positive or if it was a negative. Am I praying safer? And then safer means there is doubt or mistrust to some degree in that prayer. Kids have 3-worded prayers. And then I look at my laundry list. Somebody will be in class and be like, oh, pray for so-and-so in the family who is sick in the hospital with whatever that is. And then I'm like, all right, cool. So then when I'm praying about it at home, I'm praying for healing. But then I'm like, you know what? How about anyone that's going to be coming in contact with this person, that the right information is getting to them? These are all positive things. And so the right information is getting, that they're able to figure it out, get on a good treatment schedule. And then for the family, whoever is either struggling or stressing out there, maybe some rest or endurance. And then maybe because the family's all in the hospital this week, who's watching the dog? Let's pray for the dog walker. You know what I mean? And so it gets all these things. And I'm like, God, is that even what you wanted me to pray for? I'm just like, is this a really abundant prayer, or is this in case of emergency prayer? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
So does it feel like tacking on disclaimers, like I'm praying for healing, but if you don't, I still trust you and you're still good? Or does it feel more like if I don't say it, then maybe God won't answer that particular part?
so neither, but maybe a blend of the first one. I can recall a specific prayer that I had for a girlfriend of mine just having so much car trouble, and car stuff is expensive. And it was like ongoing. And I just felt so bad. She was like coming in, you could just see it on her face. And so I just remember praying that night about it in my little list of things. And I was like, you know what, God, can you just fix that? Just take care of it. You can just make it stop. And I said it just like that. And I was like, yeah. Okay. And then moved on to the next prayer, right? And I remember we're in the group chat and there's no other update on the car. And then so waited until Wednesday when I saw her. I forget what the thing was with the car. We waited till Wednesday and I was like, hey, how's your car doing? And she was like, oh my gosh, it's great. Whatever it was stopped. And I don't know, but basically it was God had answered this prayer. Nothing else is wrong right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I know that he's capable. But I also know, and we talked about this in another episode, I also know that sometimes the things that we're praying for are not in his will. And we don't always know that. And maybe it is, and maybe it's not. So then I find that when it comes to, I think I notice it in healing for sure. Would I like the miracle? Sure. But I also recognize that that could not be it. And I've seen the value in everything that happens at the same time. I think, and I may be misquoting this, but I remember Dave said to us once, he shared about how somebody had prayed over him and was praying for healing, but not so quickly so that he might experience the fullness of God. And I may or may not have messed up a couple of words there, but there's value in all of that. And so there's things that can be used in our suffering. And so I don't want to necessarily just be like, yeah, God, make it all go away, because then we don't really learn anything either. And I don't want that to sound like we deserve to learn lessons. There's so much more that God wants for us. And so I go in these circles in my head that, and you guys should know this by now. This is not news, should not be a surprise. And so when I was originally coming up with this, I was still trying to figure it out, like where I was with things. And I think for the most part, I think I've learned more about what God is capable of doing and maybe more of his character and how he likes to work. And so in that aspect, I don't feel like I am praying safer, but there are definitely some times when it's like with the mom thing right now with her health and what's going on. I feel like I would love it if you got rid of it completely. But in the interim, these are my needs right now. So endurance for things that I'm doing or just whatever. And so I don't see a negative in them. I think there is some degree of growth, and the more knowledge you get, and it can drive yourself crazy a little bit. But also, I think it's more of a positive. I think it is that. I think that it's learning God more and maybe the ways that he is more likely to move, which benefits us in the long run. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
I think I pray pretty bold prayers when it comes to things like you said, like healing or asking for something. I think what has shifted for me is it's not what I'm asking or how I'm asking. It's that I understand that just because I ask doesn't mean that I'm going to get what I've asked. And I used to see that as, well, maybe I didn't say it right, or maybe I need to do something, and so then God will answer that prayer. But I don't think my asking and how I'm asking is necessarily, that's not what's bringing about the answer. Mm-hmm. God's going to answer how he knows it's best for me, because I could, without me knowing, I could be asking for something, whether it's for me or on behalf of someone else, that's not at all good for me or that person, or it's not really what is God's best for that person. And so I feel like I'll ask, but now what has shifted more for me is I'm not now insisting that God answer the prayer that I've prayed or the way that I think it should be answered, or because in my immaturity in my relationship with God, once upon a time, I did think that I knew more than I know. And if I'm asking and you're a good father, then why would you not answer that prayer when I don't see as clearly as I think I do? He obviously sees very clearly. I always think of, it's like a little kid asking if they can have 5 donuts for breakfast, and the parent says no. And all the little kid thinks is, that's mean. I want 5 donuts. When the parent knows this young child eating 5 donuts for breakfast is not good for all kinds of reasons.
Does not need the diabetes.
No. And so the answer is no, but it's for the child's benefit. It's for their good. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm probably very often like the child wanting 5 donuts, and I just don't see it. And so if God doesn't answer, that doesn't mean I prayed too safe of a prayer. It's just, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. And I feel like most of my examples or comments are going to come from the category of healing, because this is where I notice it more. I know that even sometimes, like when I do pray for healing on someone, my hesitation is not whether or not God will come through, because I know he's answering every prayer. But I do have a concern about what the other person has now interpreted if God doesn't answer it in the way that everyone was hoping for. And then I think I definitely have some hesitation on that aspect. But yeah, I was trying to see if there were other areas where I've noticed this coming up more, but I think it's definitely been more on the healing front.
A friend of mine, this person is a mentor to both John and me, when he would pray for physical healing, he would take a moment and tell the person that whether or not God chooses to heal them has nothing to do with their level of faith. It's not, if God chooses not to heal you this side of heaven, it's not because you are lacking in faith. We can't always comprehend the things that God is choosing to do or not choosing to do. And so he would always take a moment and reassure them. And I always thought that was just so kind Because the same thing, like you don't know how they're receiving it. And especially if it's somebody that they look up to and think this person has a really great relationship with God, then somehow that's extra insurance. And so then this will really happen now. Right. And so then they hang all their hopes on that person prayed for me. And that's getting skewed, and that's a whole other topic. But we do have to keep in mind that that other person, whoever it is that we're praying for, the Holy Spirit's going to take care of them too. They're God's kid too, and God's going to work whatever he needs to do in and through them. But yeah, I've felt the same hesitation sometimes of, I'm asking for this, but how are you hearing me asking for this? Because it's not magic words. Just because I'm asking isn't. And just because anybody's asking doesn't mean it's going to look the way that we want it to. God might decide to do something very different than what we're asking. And that doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong. But yeah, it's a tricky spot for sure.
I love the illustration you've given before where it's not, you got to do A, B, and C and then it works. And then, or maybe you're just a little bit off. So then God says no. And you were like, oh, you almost had it, kid. I always think about that now. Like, it's so funny. It's true though. Who wouldn't do that?
No, that's not loving. That's not kind. No.
Now I want a shirt that says I'm God's kid too. Could all walk around with that.
Oh yeah. Okay, so what did you say about when little kids pray and they it's a very simple, how did you say that? It was a really simple prayer.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I was a child, so it's hard to really give you an example. But I felt it was more like, God, can you just fix this or take care of that? And I think honestly, it was probably way more gratitude rather than asking, because I didn't think I probably didn't even really know what I needed. I'm just like, thanks God for the sun. Thanks God for the moon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by simple.
And I don't know, I think just like we learn more vocabulary, we learn nuance in language. Like our language gets more sophisticated the older we get, at least we hope. Some of us, maybe not all of us, and I'm including me in that. But I feel like the same thing has to happen with our prayers, is that not that the specific wording of our prayers has to be sophisticated, because I don't think that matters to God, but I think the more the understanding of what am I asking and why am I asking it, I feel like that changes as our relationship with God changes. The more mature our relationship is with him, then the way that we ask and what we're asking for, I think, would change too, just like any other growing process. Little kid prayers are powerful because of the person saying it. I don't think it has to do with the language. And so I think the more my heart changes toward God, that my slightly more sophisticated prayers still have power because of the connection with him, not so much what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
It does. It is more powerful for a 5-year-old to say, thank you, God, for the sun.
Yeah.
Than a 40-year-old saying, thanks, God, for the sun. Good night.
Well, but I still thank him for the sun.
Yeah.
I thanked him for it today.
But there's a lot more things that I'm thankful for and that I see these days.
Yeah, because I don't know if my prayers sound drastically different, because I still do thank him for things like my goats and my chickens. And I don't know how many times a week I thank him for the house and the property that he led us to. And that's where I get to live, because I've seen reflections of him all over the place. And so I do pray very, I guess they would sound very childlike. Thanks for my animals, and thanks for the cats, and thanks for this land. But I think, I don't know. I think we probably all get hung up on how they sound, or did I thank him for all the things? Did I leave something off? And he's like, you're so cute. I love you. Go to sleep. You're fine. We're good. I think he feels the same about us now than he did when we were praying the 3-year-old, thank you for everything, God. Amen.
I saw this meme a while back, and I may or may not have sent it to you. I don't remember, but sometimes we'll get on ourselves about praying at night just before we fall asleep, and then actually falling asleep before we finish the prayer. And then the image was a mom with her kid who was talking, but then eventually falls asleep mid-conversation, how mom holds the kid. And
yeah, it's a lovely picture.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's, what if God's actually like this with us about those kinds of prayers, and he's not oh, sure, you're going to fall asleep on our conversation. It's not like that at all. And so I'm like, oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, I always feel like if I fall asleep during talking to God, it's like he was reading me a story as I was falling asleep. That's what my both of my parents did, but I remember my dad doing it more just because he always did different voices, and so that sticks out in my head more. And so I feel like it's that same feeling of that it's just such a nice, peaceful way to drift off into sleep. And so if I fall asleep during my prayer, it's like, well, God was reading me a bedtime story, and that was what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to fall asleep. That was the whole point.
I love that. So our prayer shifting, I can be very reflective and observant. And when I notice patterns shifting in me, I think it's worth taking some time and digging into it. So in this shifting, we're looking at, is this maturity? Is it experience? Is it disappointment? I feel like sometimes all the above, case by case basis. And so then if it is like the experience that is doing this, is it more like deepening our prayers then, or is it complicating them? So I think initially for me, it did feel more like complication. Okay. Because then I was like, what am I doing? So much has changed. And that's part is on me too, because every time something like that happens, I think I'm doing something wrong. But the more time that I've spent on this, I do think it is more deepening.
And I don't mean to make it sound like when I was a little kid, it was very simple, and now I'm so much more sophisticated, because same, like I will, if it's about this topic, my prayers have stayed very faithful, very on track. I totally believe God's going to do this. And then there's this other topic over here where I've asked 1,900 times, and it's like, well, I guess God's not going to answer that prayer, so I give up on that one. You know what I mean? Just, it really depends on what the prayer is, what I'm asking, how long it's taking, if I've seen what I perceive as movement in that area on God's part. But yeah, I definitely have disappointment because it hasn't turned out the way that I wanted it to, or in the timing that I thought it would, has definitely affected some things. But then there are other places where, I don't know, it hasn't wavered. But I feel like it ebbs and flows. It goes back and forth. It's really faithful, and then, oh my gosh, and this is never going to happen. What's going on? I don't understand. And so it's just, I can be all over the place, but I never feel like I completely lose sight of who God is and what he's doing. And it's like you always say, we can hold two things at the same time. And I feel like that has stayed steady even in the times where I felt like I was at my lowest or most frustrated with God's timing or angriest or whatever. There was always this little thing underneath going, no, but he's still here. He's still doing stuff, even if it doesn't look how you want it to. Still frustrating though.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And the whole God answers, but his answer might be not yet. That's hard.
It is hard.
I dislike it more than I want to.
Yeah.
And the line from Chronicles of Narnia always comes to mind with, I think it's Lucy. I think she's the one who's asking about soon. And Aslan says, I count all times as soon. And so I don't know. I wanted it.
This timeline soon.
I wanted my answer like 2 months ago. What do you mean soon? I don't know. When you say soon, Lord, what do you mean? I count all times as soon. I'm like, but I want it now. Very much like the kid demanding their donuts.
Yeah. And now I want some tasty dessert. Thanks, Brooke.
Telling you, it always has to do with food for us. And John was telling me, hi, John.
Hi, John.
He was telling me about a conversation he and God were having about, I don't remember all the details. Even if I did, I'm not going to air his conversation with God for everyone. He can do that. But he said that God was recategorizing things for him because God was very kindly pointing out that John only had two categories or two lenses, however you want to say it, that he was seeing things through. And John was seeing it as, I heard this, whatever it is, from God, and it was true. Or I heard it and it happened. That was one category. Or I heard it and it wasn't true, or it hasn't happened. And God was like, what if there's a third category? What if it's you've heard it and it just hasn't happened yet? And while that's helpful, it's also not helpful because when? Soon? Sure, but I count all times as soon. Somehow whenever God says that to you, like when God said that to John, it does something. I could have said that to John, not that I am as smart as God, but I'm just saying it's different when someone else says it to you, but when God says it, it changes things at a level that other situations, other people, whatever, can't change things.
Yeah. And now I'm just thinking, does John go back into his journals and then he's got to review them all again because there's 3 categories now, not the 2.
Oh, for John to go back through his journals, that's going to take some time. He's got lots of journals. Yeah.
I've seen only the one.
Oh, no, that one has multiple little books in it.
I remember him saying how he's got like the stacks and everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome. I love that.
So has there been a time for you when you've asked and you've seen it the way that you were hoping or wanting, or you've asked and you're still waiting, or you've asked and it was no, some version of any of those?
Ooh, I've had a no, and I've shared it on here before, but I'll share it again because this may be your first time listening.
Welcome to the pod.
Welcome. Last year, so at the end of 2024, I closed down the business, right? And it was like cold turkey as far as income coming in, and started this ministry, Misfit of Creation. And
where can we find information on Misfit of Creation?
Find it everywhere, you guys. All the socials, so Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And you can get the downloadable studies on the Etsy shop, which is misfitofcreation.etsy.com. And I think that's mostly where you can find the majority of all my things. But so it was like an evolution of things. Didn't really know where it was going. I just knew that he wanted me to start this. And then everybody's, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But how are you going to make money? And it's, I don't know, man. I'm trying to figure this out too. I'm talking to God too. All right. And it's like all this pressure. And
I'll invite you to the business meeting next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just remember, because it costs money to exist. And I'm like, do I get a part-time job? Do you want me to get a part-time job? And I just felt like I kept hearing no. And I was just like, this is really hard. I have bills to pay. And like, people think I'm crazy, and I don't mind that they think I'm crazy, but it's also keeping me from being able to focus because now I got to deal with them in these conversations. But anyway, so I remember specifically, I was sitting down with John. Hi, John. And I forget what we were talking about. We were going over questions on some questions that I have, shocker. But we were like going more in depth about it. But before we started that, he had shared about a friend that he had, and they were looking for someone to run the photography booth at a vendor event. And if I knew anybody, and it was going to be on like what particular Sunday, and then this was the pay. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I could do that so easy and I could totally use the money, but it was on a Sunday. I'm very protective over my Sundays, and I'm like, but I need the money. So I'm thinking internally, okay, I'll pray about this. But I was like, yeah, I'll take the information. I'll ask some friends if anybody would be interested. And I remember going into my Jeep after our whatever we were doing that day, and I was praying about it, and I was like, God, is this something that I can pick up and do? And it just felt like it came so quickly, and it was just like, no. And I feel like I'm back in that spot again. And I was just like, I just started crying, right? Because I'm like, oh, that would have been easy money. I really needed it. And I'm like, okay, but that was a clear one to me.
Yeah.
And I like sharing that too, because people think you're crazy for all this anyway. Like, I'm telling you, like, I would have liked to have a part-time job, but I see why he didn't want me to do that. And later on, that conversation was ministry is where it's going to be coming from. So if it was like one-off things that are ministry related, sure, like that was cool to go ahead and do and accept money from. But I do remember that being like an immediate no. Most times things take time for me to hear something from God, get a clearer direction, but that one was like instant, and that one was really hard. There are times when, like I had said about my friend praying for her car, and it was like, I forget what it was, but yeah, it was like she didn't have any issues and she was so excited about it. And when she shared, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that was really cool. It worked right away.
Yeah.
And then there are things that I pray for another girlfriend of mine, for example. She's been unemployed for a while, and I'm praying about it in all kinds of different ways at this point, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, because nobody wants to be unemployed for that long. I don't even want to be unemployed for as long as I've been, basically. But at first it was like that the right opportunities would present themselves, that she would meet the right people, and then that this time that she has away from employment, that she would be able to use it, and it would be a time that she grows closer to you, which she has. Like, that's been awesome to have a front seat at, but still it's hard.
Yeah.
And so she's doing interviews like all the time, and they're nothing but a bunch of rejections. And she's very talented. It's a very bad job market, but she's trying. She's putting in whatever she can for this. And so that would be one that like, I feel like it feels unanswered. It's not unanswered because he answers everything, but sometimes it feels unanswered because I see her, right? And I feel bad. It's like, obviously everybody in that kind of a position would like some stability, to have some clarity and have a secured employment then and there. So definitely on all sides of that spectrum as far as my prayer requests are concerned. Like I was just saying for this one with my girlfriend, I started shifting the way I prayed about it. So I'm like, I was praying for a job to show up. So I think maybe that's not what God's wanting. So I guess I don't need to pray for that anymore. So there's something else here that we need to be praying about. And I think without realizing, I'm playing this guessing game of what it is so that I can lock in on that, because I want to be aligned to God's will for her. And whatever it is, he's been sustaining her this whole time, and she's doing all right. She's not starving or anything. She's doing fine.
Good.
She's doing fine. So that in and of itself is also answered prayers. But yeah, I feel like I've been on all sides of this for sure.
Yeah.
Case by case basis on where my head's at for these things.
I often wonder, and it's easier for me to wonder when it's for someone else rather than when it's my situation that I want to look different. But what is God up to? Like in that situation with you, because like you said, you're totally capable of doing that. It would have been not a whole lot of effort. You get paid for it. Great. No. So what are you up to here, God? What else are you actually trying to get at in me? What are you surfacing? What am I believing this will do for me that you're saying no to? You know what I mean? It's those kinds of questions that again, it's easier to ask for someone else for their situation, because when it's me, all I can feel is, why is it a no? And now I'm disappointed and I'm confused, and it feels hurtful often when I remember to ask God about my situations. What are you doing? What are you up to? And not what are you doing, but curiosity. What's going on here that I'm not aware of? It changes things. And I remember one time I was praying for somebody, and I was praying very specifically for God to do this thing because that's what they were wanting. And it was almost like, the only way I can describe it is it almost felt like somebody was right here and they whispered something, and it changed my view of what I was praying. And I mean, it wasn't an audible voice, but I feel like that was probably the Holy Spirit, because then I immediately felt very different internally and changed my prayer to, God, I'm asking you to do whatever will strengthen her trust in you. And that felt like, was what she was asking for a bad thing? No, but that's probably what God was really after, more so than do this specific thing. And eventually, not very long after, God did do what she was asking, that's really fun. Those are fun stories. But I think we can get very laser focused on what I'm asking and what I think it should look like. And God is always up to more than just one thing. He's always doing more than one thing at a time. But when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to remember that. And it's hard to feel secure sometimes when it takes money to pay the bills and to buy groceries. And so what am I supposed to do here? But what is he actually after in those moments?
I half wonder if the other person is ever, that's not what I wanted to pray for. God, let's undo this prayer right now as it's happening.
Another mentor of mine said that she really started to shift her prayers, like intercessory prayers, praying for somebody else, because she would often do what we all do and ask for this thing, for this person. And she shifted and would ask God, what would you have me pray for this person? And so then you're already aligning yourself with his will. And it really does a lot for you too. And it's not just about, is that prayer for this other person going to be answered? It changes things in your relationship with God. And so I've started doing that. And that's really fun too.
So that kind of reminds me, or makes me think on, again, some of the ways that my prayers have shifted, in that it's no longer just, hey, God, can you fix this? But more on how they experience, if I'm praying for someone else, like how they experience God in this, or me, right? I don't even know if I've said on this episode yet or not, but I've been thinking about it. So if I'm saying it twice, I'm saying it twice. But as I'm praying for Mom in her situation right now, have I at least asked for God to remove the aneurysms? Yes, I have. But that hasn't been the focus. That's honestly maybe been like 1% of the focus of my prayers and all of this. And most of it has been like experiencing God through it. So feeling that he's there, or endurance to keep doing what it is that I need to keep doing. And it shifts from, can you change this outcome, to God, can you just be here?
Yeah.
And there's tons of value in that. And I would argue that's definitely the better thing to be praying about, for sure. It takes a little bit.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit to get there.
And I think that's the growing and the maturing our relationship with him, is that at first, and even after we are a little more mature in our relationship with him, it does feel more transactional, and we just don't see it that way. We don't realize that's what it is. But I wonder sometimes if you got to get past that to then get into the deeper, more connected place. I'm not saying that we all have to go through a transactional phase, but it does seem like that happens for a lot of people. And I don't think it's that they're trying to make it a transactional relationship. I think it's part of the growing process. And just like little kids often ask mom and dad for things, and it's not until the kid gets a little bit older that they understand what it actually means to have a real connection and a relationship with their parent. As they get older, it changes. It's not just, did you feed me? Did you do my laundry for me? Because when you're really young, that's what parents do for you. And you don't have the idea of, oh, I can actually relate to this person on a different level than meet all of my needs. And so I think that's part of that, is that we eventually start to see God in a different way. And so it does become more important that, can you just be here? Can you just make your presence tangible for me in this situation that I'm not really liking very much? And yes, please change it. But more importantly, I'm asking for your presence.
That word is something I say a lot now, like in a tangible way. I don't know if I'm praying for somebody else. Like, I don't know what it is you want to pray for, but I know that can we do something where that they feel you in a tangible way, in the way that they need it the most? And I feel like that's usually my main core for things at this point, because that's where that transformation happens anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I ask that for myself. God, when I ask you to come sit here next to me, I actually want to feel your presence sitting next to me, because that's really, and I've realized that really more often than not, that's what I'm in need of. That's what I'm actually wanting. I'm asking for these other things out here, and they're not bad things, but really, if I look underneath it, what I'm really wanting is to know we're still connected, right, God? You're still here, and I'm still safe with you, and we still got this very strong foundation. And I think this other stuff matters. There's nothing wrong with asking for it, but I think if I get down to the heart of my question, it's, you're still here, right? Yeah? Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, I'll be back. Peace is another thing that I've started adding in to prayers a lot, especially when all the hard things are happening, because we don't know why. We may or may not get the answers and immediately or later on, but to at least have peace in that situation, whatever that needs to look like, whether it's peace in decision making or peace in the middle of this chaos that isn't going to end soon, or just fill in the blank there for that. But I found that that's also another big one that I do. Do you think we've lost boldness or gained perspective?
I don't think it's either or. I think we can still pray bold prayers and have gained perspective. I feel like I can still ask for bold things that most people would be like, I don't think God's going to answer that, and that's okay. But I'm not so cavalier about just throwing out, hey, can you help that friend do this for me, make sure my car is fine. It's not just like, I'm tossing out all these things, because I think about it like, if I was asking those kinds of questions in that way to somebody, if I was asking John for, hey, can you do this and can you do that, and without any regard to what's the effect on my connection with him. And so, not that I'm going to overwhelm God with my requests, but he's not a vending machine. It's not about me hitting the right buttons and then I get my Snickers. It's always food.
I like Snickers.
Me too. But it's more about, God, I'm asking this, and in the answering that prayer, that's going to have an effect on my connection with him, but also just me being willing to come to him. And so it's, again, he's doing more than one thing at a time. And so I feel like my perspective shifts in the sense of, I've seen him answer these kinds of prayers, and so I'm going to continue to ask for those kinds of things. I've asked for this and he hasn't answered yet, or it's a no and I just don't realize it, but I'm still going to continue asking. And so my perspective is I can always come to my Heavenly Father with my request, but it's my heart posture toward that. Am I coming demanding? Am I coming with a list of, if you can get me this, great. If you can get me that, that's awesome too. You know what I mean? It's more about my relationship with him. And so I don't think it's an either or.
I was going to say that I feel like both can exist at the same time. So samesies. But I really like how you mentioned the way you're asking, like if it's very cavalier, what does that do to your connection and relationship? I think that's a very good perspective to consider.
Thanks.
Note to self, Denise, stop being so cavalier. Got it.
Nice. All right.
Do you think you'd still be praying the same way if you never experienced disappointment?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those I can guess at it, but because I have experienced disappointment, I don't know what it would look like otherwise.
I don't know a time before disappointment.
Oh my. Okay. The tone has changed, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too. It would be hard for me to answer that for sure.
But I also think it matters what we've done with the disappointment.
Yeah.
Have I taken my disappointment and then used it as a sentence on what I believe about God or what I believe about my connection with him? Or have I taken it as, yeah, this didn't go the way I wanted, or it didn't go the way I thought? And when I bring that back to him and go, and I'm feeling disappointed about this, or I'm feeling confused about this, and so what do you want to show me in this? How are you taking care of my heart in this process? But if I just use it as, well, God didn't answer that prayer, and now it's, right. Again, it really affects my connection with him. And not because he has gone away, not because he's withholding, it's my view of what he's doing and why he's doing it. But I don't know, I don't view disappointment as negatively as I used to. Now, don't hear that incorrectly. I would much rather never be disappointed.
Right.
If I could choose, yes, let's just toss disappointment out. But the ways that I have felt disappointed, I don't know. Why is it that in those tough situations, that's where I feel like the relationship strengthens. I grow more. I build resistance. Like, it's strength training. You're building muscle. You are getting stronger. But man, wouldn't it be nice if we learned our lesson through something really simple? Oh, I have a paper cut. God's so amazing. But instead it's heart-wrenching, difficult moments.
Right.
But then you come out of it going, yeah, God's so amazing. Look how he showed up even through that difficult thing. But yeah, if I could not be disappointed, sign me up.
There's this thing I heard where it was like, if you ask anyone to tell you a time when they've experienced God the most, or even spiritual growth, it's never an easy time. It's never that little paper cut.
Yeah.
Because that would be nice. But it's not.
Oh, I broke a nail. Look how God showed up for me.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I've said a few times on the show is that it's always been really helpful for me to have language for things that I may or may not be feeling, or could possibly be feeling, or what could be happening, different perspectives, all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate when you start listing out some of the questions that you ask. Like the one that just jumped out at me today was, how are you taking care of my heart in this? That's not something I would have thought about asking. So thanks for sharing that, Brooke.
Sure.
I like that.
And it's not necessarily a question, but something that I've gotten from Wild at Heart, John and Stacey Eldridge. Love them and their ministry.
Hi, John and Stacey. You don't know me, but hi.
They don't know me either.
They know you.
No, I don't think so. But that would be so fun. But often in prayers or when they're talking about different situations, I've heard both of them say, Jesus, catch my heart in this. And I'm like, oh yeah, catch my heart.
Yeah.
Because I can get very focused on the pain or the disappointment or the difficulty or whatever, but really, I don't need you to change the situation as much as I need you to catch my heart.
Yeah.
That's a good one too.
I like that one. I like these.
So I feel like really, however our prayers have changed, they're going to continue to change. And really the idea is just keep swimming, right? Just keep praying. Just stay connected. Keep coming to God with all your things. Ask all the questions. Just keep it going. Sometimes it matters, specifically the thing that we're asking. Sometimes it's more catch my heart. All of them are valid. All of them matter. All of them are important, not just to us, but to God too. And so we keep going.
And if you're anything like me and initially you're like, is it right or wrong? Let's definitely throw that out. Let's not add that stress to us because it's not just one of those categories.
Ask God, what do you want to say to me about this belief I have of, is this right or wrong to ask? Because again, he's doing more than one thing at a time. So I'm not saying don't toss it out, but maybe bring it to him first. And if he says, okay, let's toss it out, then we toss it. But he might want to do something with it before we toss it.
Brooke's back at it again with those good questions. That's why I keep her on the show, guys.
Great. At least I know my position is secure.
So maybe growth in prayer isn't about choosing between bold faith and honest reality, but actually learning how to hold both at the same time. And that we can ask God for the miracle and still trust him in whatever comes. I like the whole open hand, holding something with an open hand. So yeah, thanks for chatting with me today, Brooke.
Hey, back at you, Denise.
Yay!
And thanks to all of you for tuning in again, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye. If you want to find out more information about Misfit of Creation, which is a soul food ministry, you can find me on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You can also find me on Etsy if you want to get some downloadable Bible studies or devotionals, and that's misfitofcreation.etsy.com. You can also find me on Patreon if you'd like to be a monthly supporter and using the same handle, Misfit of Creation. And I have an online Facebook community group that you can join, and you can find out about all the local events happening that I'd love for you to be a part of with me.
If you'd like more information about my coaching practice or read some helpful blogs or even schedule an appointment with me, you can visit blueprintheartandmind.com. And you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
But wait, there's more.
I get it now, I need to be myself because a copycat can only do so well. In love with everything that makes me who I am. Don't need a backup plan, I hope they understand that I'm doing better today. I got me a mission that got some fruition, you down to stay out the way. Can't seek validation from people who hating, I got my mentality straight. Shout out to God, I've been keeping the first, He's been working and paving the way. And now I can guarantee you that's the way to live. Way to live, promise that's the way to live. Way to live, promise that's the way to live.
But that's what I'm asking, is how has this looked for you?
Let's just ask it. We'll see what comes out.
Oh, that's always my favorite.